Call to order this meeting of the Town of Sheffield Select Board meeting for November 21st at 7 o'clock. First of all, I want to let everyone know and thank CPSB for recording this meeting. You may record this meeting just as long as you first notify the chair. If anybody can't hear, please just put up your hand and we'll try and talk a little louder. And our first order of business is the approval of meeting minutes, and since we have none this evening, I'm going to skip over that item. Our second item is discussion and action regarding the designer selection for the highway garage project design. Rhonda, would you like to take this, and then we'll ask for some comments by Bob, since he was one of the members of the committee that was the first step to our interviewing the two candidates.
Yes. So we put out an RFQ, which is a request for qualifications for designers to help us design a new highway garage. A committee was formed to accept those RFQs, read them all, discuss them, and rank them, and then give the Board of Selectmen or the Select Board the ranking on where each one would fall. Well, we received two, and so the Designer Selection Committee had one meeting and decided that they had ranked Weston and Sampson as number 1 and EDM as number 2. And that was forwarded to the Board of Selectmen, who then scheduled interviews with each one of the designers last week.
Bob, do you want to, excuse me, Bob, as a member of that committee, do you want to add anything?
Well, I could add that, both firms are very good. I think for myself, the reason why I went more on Weston and Sampson was on their experience with highway garages. They have a vast depth of experience on this particular type of building with our particular needs, and that kind of rose them to the top. EDM we've worked with many times. They're a good firm. I just don't feel they had the experience and the depth for this project that Weston and Sampson did.
Nadine, would you like to give your opinion?
I have to agree with Bob. I think that Weston and Sampson has a lot of experience in this particular building.
I agree with both of you. I would, when I reviewed the two proposals again today in depth, I did not find a list of deliverables as precise as we saw in our presentation last week. So I'm feeling I'd like to know what Weston and Sampson deliverables are. Specifically, I think we can all remember that one chart, so many meetings with the public, so many meetings with the committee, and I don't know how you both feel about potentially making an award conditioned on receiving a comparable or any list of deliverables, because I didn't find it in here.
I have no problem on making it contingent to a list of deliverables. The presentation was quite in-depth, and I believe they covered all the deliverables, but it wouldn't hurt to have them listed in writing.
I didn't, maybe I just didn't catch it, so if you both caught it, I'm not going to make a big deal out of this, but I didn't hear specific numbers of meetings with the select board or the committee. I didn't hear those. I heard and I read their presentation, which was very in-depth, and they certainly had enough people here. Nadine, what do you think? Because I don't want to make a huge deal.
I wasn't part of the interview process.
I'm sorry, you
That's
weren't
okay.
part of the interview
I wasn't
process.
part of the
You weren't
interview
here.
process, so I have nothing that I can share. It's really going to fall down to the two of you, and I'm happy to support if you want a specific list of deliverables.
Well, I hear agreement on Weston and Sampson. Okay. Bob, how do you feel about just Rhonda asking for that list of deliverables, and if there's no issue with it, the contract is awarded? I would hope that wouldn't take a very long period of time.
Yeah, I don't think it would. So I'll make a motion that we offer the bid to Watson and Sampson on the contingency that they give us a list of deliverables in writing to compare to. If they are adequate then and similar, then we will award it to the bid to them.
Second.
Will we, the three of us need to, I mean, we can take the list of deliverables straight out of the EDM proposal for comparison. How would you like to set that decision up? I'm just kind of trying to finish this motion.
Well, how would you like to set it up, since you're the one who wants
Okay.
the deliverables?
I think I'd like to see it and have each of us say, okay.
Okay. We'll sign off on it then.
Yep.
Right,
I have no problem with that.
okay. So we have a motion and a second. Pat, you want to make a comment? I do. You have to. That looks like Knitter's Row over there, by the way.
Pat Levine, 261 East Main Street. Unless you mean this, I didn't hear you say it, a list as opposed to a schedule. I mean, I think you would like some sense of when they intend to do.
No, a list. So
Okay,
many
I would
meetings,
think you'd wanna know.
I meant what I said. They have included a schedule. Okay, I meant a list, so many meetings with whomever's the committee doing the design, working with them on the design work, public information meeting, a write-up and diagrams at the first level, 2 or more selections of designs. I meant what I said.
You have a schedule of those already, but just not the list of them? Is that what I'm understanding?
We laid out a schedule for which the project would progress.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
And if you want, you can see these bids, they're public documents. All right, so any other discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Could I also, I just want to make a motion that we send a letter of thanks to each of the persons who served on the committee. Okay, they did a good review, and they did their work, I think probably with all due speed.
I would just like to add that I did speak with one of those members who said it was quite a learning experience. He had no idea of the complexity of building a municipal building. He had no idea how much procurement, and he didn't understand the levels, and it was quite an education for him. And he wanted to thank all three of us for our work for the town of Sheffield.
Oh, okay, thank you. And Frank is one of those members in here.
Yes.
He's here, so thank you, Frank. If we could just go forward just one more on this. What's next, Rhonda, in this process? We'll get a designer selected, which we already have just done. What happens next to kind of keep this moving forward?
Well, the next thing you'll need to decide is whether you want a designer review committee or whether you're going to keep that responsibility with the three of you.
And of course, you and the highway superintendent.
Right. We wouldn't be full members, but we would be advisories to that committee.
So maybe we can take that decision up at our next meeting. But I know we're all anxious to move this project, which someone at the last meeting said was over 40 years old, forward. So, okay, all
We
right.
also, just for a little more information, have a forestry plan that will be coming shortly.
Good.
Well, if it's ready for our December 7th meeting, let's see if we can't include that, okay? All right, so, all right, next is discussion, possible action regarding a giving tree. Rhonda?
So a couple of years ago, we set up the tree, the holiday tree, downstairs outside of the tax collector's office. And on it were things that the public could take off and provide to the town. At the time, we had the canine, so there were supplies for Odin, the canine dog. There were things on there that the senior center had needs for coffee, those type of things that we can get a list from them on, what they might need, paper goods for their meals, different things like that. And there was also options for the highway who might be out plowing all night, and so if they came into the highway garage, there were canned goods or something that they could pop into the microwave. And so the question has been asked on whether we're going to do that again this year to set that tree up and put these ornament type needs on the tree for people to be able to donate.
How was, excuse me, how was it received in the past?
We got quite a bit the first time that we did it.
Okay.
Right?
It's
Lots of-
totally optional.
It is. There were
Totally
lots of
anonymous.
Tractor Supply gift cards for the dog, and the senior center did get some supplies. I'm not sure how much the highway got. I think there were a couple things for the highway, but
Yeah.
Dunkin' Donuts.
yes. Coffee.
Gift cards. Yeah. Bob, what about you?
It sounds great. I don't see any reason not to now that we're on the backside of COVID.
Yeah. So I'll make a motion that we put up a giving tree for gifts that can be given to the various departments in the town.
So, okay, what are the logistics? If you want to give something, you take it and you bring a gift, and where do you leave the gift?
You can leave it with the tax office. You can bring it up here. You can leave it
Okay,
under the
So
tree.
you don't have to take it to the department for which it
No,
would
no,
be
no, you would
intended.
leave it under the
Easy,
tree or
easy.
somewhere in the
Easy,
town.
easy, easy. Okay, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Discussion possible action regarding appointment to Berkshire Regional Transit Authority Advisory Board. I had resigned and had my resignation accepted, and we have someone who is interested in this.
We do not, but Nadine said if no one stepped forward, she would take it, so.
All right, so I nominate Nadine Harvard as our Berkshire Regional Transit Authority Advisory Board representative. And if somebody else is chomping to do this, you wish to submit a letter of resignation, appointment, interest at any time, possibly Nadine won't have to fill in this, but we will let that be the case. I appreciate your stepping forward, Nadine.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll recuse myself.
Thank you, Nadine. So, discussion of regarding an APR project on Maple Avenue. Rhonda, you want to bring us up to speed on this one?
Sure. So we received an agricultural preservation restriction for property owned by Morven Allen off of Maple Avenue. The current use of the property is primary silage corn. And so this is a formality that the town has to go through, announce at a public hearing, see if anyone has any objections, and if not, sign off on this and send it over to the Department of Agriculture. Smitty Pignatelli sent me a note and asked me if we were all okay with this before he moved or signed anything and moved it forward. This property is currently in chapter, so it's not going to make an impact on our tax base one way or another.
So they are asking us to waive the 120-day.
Yes.
And that is all at this time?
Yes.
Okay.
Or if you had any issues with this taking place at all, they're asking if you do to please send those forward as well.
But this isn't the final sign-off by the town?
Yes.
I thought there was a public hearing. No? Okay. Does anybody have any objections to this?
No.
I certainly don't. No tax implications. Is there a motion on this?
I'll make a motion that we authorize the state to move forward with the APR project for Morven Allen.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And shall we authorize the town administrator to sign?
No, you have to sign.
I have to sign it, okay, all right. I'll do that
So
then.
do you. So do you.
Okay,
We all do.
okay, good. So next, we have an action regarding a resignation on the Ashley Falls Historic District Commission. Rhonda, would you set the stage for us, please?
Sure. So we received a resignation on November 8th from Louis Levine, who is resigning from the Ashley Falls Historic District Commission effective immediately.
So I'll make a motion that we accept the resignation of Lou Levine from the Ashley Falls Historic District.
And I'll second that.
may we add a letter thanking him for
Absolutely.
his service? He's done a lot of work for this commission. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and we have next action regarding appointment to the Ashley Falls Historic District Commission. Rhonda, again, please.
So we have Lee Batala, who is currently the alternate for that commission, would like to move up and become a full member of the commission.
So I'll make a motion that we move Lee Batala up from an alternate to a permanent member of the commission.
Second.
And normally, we would announce and then wait 2 weeks, but as I understand it, the Ashley Falls Historic District Commission has quite a bit of business in front of it.
Yes.
And it would be good to have a full commission, which is why we're doing the appointment this evening. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Unless there's anything else, we're going to get to the board member items. Bob? Nadine?
I just like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
That was going to be my comment, too. All right, okay. Let's go to town administrator items.
I just want to remind everyone that we'll be closed Thursday and Friday this week for employees' Thanksgiving holiday.
Okay, and now time for public comments. If you'd like to make a public comment, just go to the mic. Please announce your name and your address, and then you can speak on your topic.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Ken Terry. I live at 565 South Underground Avenue. And I'm also a board member of Dewey Hall. And Beth Carlson, Phyllis Webb, and I are here tonight basically to inquire about the disposition of the ARPA funds and the money collected from the cannabis excise tax. And Beth and I are representing Dewey Hall. Phyllis is a member of the Sheffield Cultural Council and a friend of the Hall. And we're interested in understanding the process through which this money will eventually be spent and how these decisions are made. We think there's a great opportunity for the town to support our local nonprofits, which have experienced financial downturns because of COVID, and which also are of great value to the town and help make it a special place to live. With regard to the ARPA grant, our organizations are still recovering from the pandemic, and we could use some financial aid to help us do that. We also believe that some consideration should be given to allocating a portion of the cannabis excise tax funds to these vital cultural institutions in line with the Sheffield Master Plan and the potential for economic development. In addition, we feel that this could help make Sheffield an even more desirable Berkshire's destination for visitors and area residents. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Beth to ask our specific questions.
Hi. Beth Carlson. I'm a resident of Stockbridge, but the president of Dewey Hall. We're just trying to understand the process, so we just have 4 simple questions. What is the process for deciding how to spend the ARPA money? Is there a deadline for the town to decide what to do with it? Is the first question.
You want to take that, Rhonda? Do you want me to take it?
So there is a deadline. I believe we have to have the money committed by 2024 and spent by 2026. We have used some of the ARPA funds. One of the things is we have told Southern Berkshire Volunteer Ambulance that we would help support a new ambulance. We have not given the funds yet, but that's one of the plans for some of the money. We have done a broadband survey to see if people in town are interested in broadband internet, which got a very poor response. So the selectmen have taken that off the table because there was not enough response. We're using some for training and staffing of employees. The board did hold public hearings. I won't be able to remember. Do you remember? It was a while ago. We held two, asking people to submit ideas or requests for ARPA. So we have those. At this time, the board has not decided whether they are going to give any type of grants to any businesses or nonprofits.
Okay, that was my next question was sort of what the process would be, if there would be a granting process for those funds.
I think we've had 2 inquiries, if I'm correct. If I remember correctly, from those 2 sessions, we had to get public input. Probably the leading contender was affordable workforce housing. We have had 2 inquiries recently, one from the Cultural Council, which was done by Bonnie Silvers, and we had another by the American Legion. I think that was maybe our last meeting, by George O'Lean. The ARPA funds uses, it's been, they come from Treasury, they came to us, they gave us a provision that we could take all of it, all the money, up to a certain point, which for us was all the money, and say that it was due to lost town revenue. So it is in a special fund, which is under the control of the Select Board, okay? We told the 2 people who have already come that this board was not necessarily adverse, but we have not laid out a process. But we did want to see that the organization who may be requesting something had first appealed to the public and done a public fundraiser. Do I have that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I think where it was left with the Cultural Council was that I'm kind of expecting them to come back at some point, maybe even in December, and lay out what they've done. And we are going to have to decide a process and what type of funds might be used, if any funds will be used. I think we've been very judicious in not allocating funds because some communities have allocated over half of their funds, and we still have a ways to go. And we receive constant requests for things that these funds could be used for that would benefit all townspeople. So it's kind of but we encourage you to ask, okay, like you're doing, but that is one thing that we have required for even further discussion, is that there's been public fundraising.
We are constantly fundraising publicly and applying.
We have gotten your letters, and I know I just sent Terry information about a grant.
Yeah,
So,
we apply for grants on a regular basis as well.
your other questions?
So, same for the cannabis excise tax funds, like sort of how are those being spent? Is there a possibility that some of that could be used for granting, for economic development, and some sort of granting process?
So cannabis excise is paid, it's collected by the state, and then it's paid back to the town. State law requires that that money go into the general fund, and then at the end of the year be certified in what we call free cash. And at budget season, which is coming up, I present to the finance committee uses for that money, and then it is voted on at town meeting. So it's not like we can just say we've collected $100,000 in cannabis excise. We can sit here and decide that we're going to give that money to specific uses. It all goes into the same pot, and then that pot is used to fund whatever the town
May
decides.
I just jump in here for 1 second? Would it be possible for some of the nonprofits in town to get together and get a warrant placed on the agenda at the next town meeting, that perhaps a certain percentage of the excise taxes be spent on activities that, revitalize and uplift the town?
Well, it's certainly always a citizen's right to put a warrant article together and present it, or either through the select board or by petition. How that would work with giving funds to the nonprofit, public funds, I would have to check on with legal in the state on whether we're allowed to do that.
Thank you.
I think potentially the differences between the board or the town spending COVID funds, ARPA funds on one hand, which are designed to do specific things, lots of them, and town funds being used to support a private non-town entity, such as a nonprofit or a business. There may be a line that says yes on this side, no on this side.
Right. I just would like to point out that Dewey Hall, it's only one of these nonprofits I'm talking about, but it actually does serve as a community center, and we have a vital function in the life of the town. Even though, we're not part of the town, we receive no funding from the town, but I think that the town has an interest in ensuring that Dewey Hall survives and continues to thrive.
The issue, Ken, is not the importance of the nonprofit. We have many, many important nonprofits, including the Historical Society and our churches, and it's your classification as a non-municipal, you're a 503C, 501c or whatever. You're a nonprofit. You're not part of a municipal entity. So we would have to check. There's very specific rules on how town money can be spent, and we would have to check that. It's not on the top of our heads.
So your chances to get ARPA funds are much better than getting cannabis excise, which is specific town dollars. And Renee did bring to the board at our retreat the Great Barrington Town's process in how to open up ARPA giving to the nonprofits in town. And we kind of tabled that because at the time we didn't have anybody looking for it. And since that time, we now have 3 nonprofits that have come to us looking for it. So I would like to suggest that perhaps we put that back on a working agenda to take a look at it and see if we can't take it and put some monies towards the needs of the nonprofits. At the time, there wasn't anybody looking for anything, so why take action on it? But I would encourage you to put together what it is you're looking for and why in a written form so that we have that to take under advisement and consider.
I think, this process isn't going to go anywhere in the sense of, I'm assuming that your request is not dependent in a month or something of that sort. I think Nadine's suggestion is really good. We're going to have to come up with something that gives everybody a level playing field. I know the Great Barrington application process we were looking at was good for Great Barrington. It was, in my thinking, a little lengthy and would potentially discourage people from applying. So we need to do a little thinking on that, and nothing is going to happen until after Thanksgiving, and then we're into the holiday season. So I would expect sometime around after the first of the year, just for planning purposes, but you can certainly get your thoughts together, and the Great Barrington application, if you wanted to look at it, is on their website. That's where I found it, so, you could go there.
We would probably take some of what they've put into theirs and adapt it for Sheffield.
Make it much more straightforward.
Yes, much more straightforward, not quite so onerous on you or on us. But we as a board, I think, have to really discuss how much we would set aside for nonprofits and how we would, what our criteria would be. For us, we would want it to be I would like it to be kind of a straightforward, category, 1 if you're going to use it, you get 1 point if you're going to use it for this, and 10 points if you're going to, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think
But-
there's certain expenses, I mean, this is going back over a couple of
Yeah.
years with
Yeah.
these funds continually evolving. I think there was a limit on operating or personnel expense, but I'm not sure. We just have to go look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't necessarily a straightforward task, but we should do it now.
Yeah, and I say, please don't be discouraged. We're not saying no. We're saying we haven't come up with a method to do it, but now that we have people interested in it, we aren't just going to be, we don't have to just keep it for town uses if indeed, and such as excise tax, we can only use it for town monies most likely. We might be able to spread some of this money into the community.
ARPA funds.
Yeah.
That would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and if you look at the master plan, there's a really good case to be made for the community building and economic development piece that the nonprofits are really, really pushing forward in Sheffield a lot. And so I think there's a really good, and to have a level playing field granting process where we all support each other, so.
Right.
We're happy to have,
Thank you for bringing this to us.
thank you.
Jeff, did you get all your questions? Did I hear 4
That
questions?
was a great discussion. Yeah.
Okay, all right, good. I want to make sure you got all of your
Yeah,
questions
thank you.
answered.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks for your
All right,
presentation.
happy Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.
Yep. Pat?
Pat Levine, 261 East Main Street. Just as a point of information, Volunteers in Medicine is a 501c3, and they got excise tax money from, pot money, marijuana money from Great Barrington.
Great Barrington has a separate process for its marijuana money, which the town has had to approve, where they take so much of it, which they get a lot more than we do. They have Theory Wellness, the cash cow, along with, I think, 7 others at this point. And their town has voted to take some of that money and distribute it out in grants through nonprofit organizations. So, right, I know that VIM has gotten it. I think that's a very good way to do it. That process is not yet in our town.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's different than HCA.
Secondly, it's funny that ARPA has come up, because that's the reason I came this evening, to find out where the idea of the generators for some of the buildings in Sheffield stands. I mean, that was something that was on the ARPA list to my memory.
So is that the 3 generators? Are we still talking about those 3 generators? The library, town hall, and
Senior
the
Center.
police department or the senior center? What-
Fire department.
Fire department?
Senior Center has one.
That's what I thought, okay.
The fire department is being installed as we speak, and we have the old one out on the municipal auction site. The other 2 have not been ordered.
So do we need to order them for this winter, or are we good till next year?
We haven't had one up until this point, so, I mean, I don't think there's any rush we won't get it before winter anyway, because we've been waiting months and months for the fire department,
So there's a back order issue. So has the library had a generator? These generators keep coming up, and I keep getting, it's like a conversation that won't go away. So the library hasn't had a generator up to this moment?
Correct.
Okay.
The Senior Center has one because it is a
Yes.
emergency housing
Yes,
situation.
exactly. And it's I think, a recognized shelter.
Yeah.
I believe the library has a similar status in the town.
I'm sorry?
I believe the library has a similar status with the town in terms of a shelter. A heating space and a cooling space.
I don't know if it has the same priority.
Beyond, the Senior
with-
Center is beyond that. It's an actual location for housing should there be a crisis.
Yeah, there's an emergency
Such as the
plan
school.
The school.
that has,
Right.
yes, I think the senior center ranked with the school. I think the library is not on that list, but I'm not positive. I can ask Heather tomorrow, I'll see her. So you're asking to have the generator ordered, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
And you need it because?
Because we provide service and are a cooling place and a heating place, and would like to continue to be able to provide those services to the town in the case of power loss.
All right, I think the board's going to have to take this under advisement, not make a decision tonight. I need to understand, and maybe, I think all of us do, the issue with the town and the issue with the library. Okay. Do we need any documentation for the library, or what we've heard today is sufficient? Do we need any further documentation from the library? I mean, I assume if the electricity goes off, if we lose power, then buildings that are non-essential close down.
Exactly.
Yes, I would assume that's the case. But I would not like to consider the library as non-essential in terms of a resource for the population in terms of heating and cooling, and a place to go and spend several hours when they themselves may not have any electricity either.
All right, so let's...
A comfortable environment with resources there.
All right, so let's discuss this further. Let's get the police and fire department's opinion, particularly on whether they see people moving around during events when power is out.
I can tell you that we have very little call for heating and cooling station. We have opened the senior center on several occasions. The one that sticks in my mind the most is that horrific October snowstorm we had. I don't know, what was it, in 2015 or 16?
Oh, 24 inches.
The 24 inches, yeah. I had the senior center open for 2 days and didn't have a single person come. We're hardy New Englanders and we don't leave our home, you know, we sort of tough it out, I guess. But, so I think it's a conversation we should have as a board.
Pat, we will have this conversation soon.
If I can contribute, or Dina can, please let us know.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Hi, Phyllis Webb, 205 Root Lane, and thank you. And just doing a follow-up, just for clarification. The ARPA funds, are they, is there a specification that they would be for more COVID-related lost revenue? Is there anything to that? So for instance, for our nonprofits, or where events couldn't happen and so forth, were they earmarked more for that? And I'm just curious.
So the closest that I can tell you, my interpretation, I guess, would be that they were awarded to the town for the town's lost revenue.
Rhonda, that's kind of a second step. When the funds were first awarded,
Right. There were several categories that the town could use. In one of them, I would have no idea. I wouldn't be able to begin to tell you tonight what they were.
Sure.
I certainly could if you wanted to come in. We could take a look at that. But one of the categories was lost revenue for the town. And towns under a certain amount of money were able to claim all of their ARPA funds as lost revenue. So that's exactly what Sheffield did, because we wouldn't have had expenses like maybe a city would have regarding lost revenue.
Phyllis, and correct me, but we went through, I think, 2 or 3 rounds beforehand with first FEMA and then something else and then something else. And the reporting requirements were horrendous for any simple expense, for for masks for the police department, any kind of PPE equipment. It was really horrendous record keeping. And Martin took a lot of that over, and he's very good at that, and he didn't even get it straight the first time. So when the ARPA funds came out, if I remember this, there were all kinds of categories. I mean, we're talking this much paper that's coming from the feds. It was just a horrendous amount of stuff to wade through. I don't know whether somebody at the state or the governor's level or the federal level realized we do not want reports from all of these towns on every single expenditure. And what they did is, and this wasn't at the beginning, they put out another release, and they said, because one of the things you could claim ARPA funds for was lost revenue, but they had this horrendous process that you had to go through to prove it, which didn't match the fiscal year, it was on the calendar year. It was like, oh my God, do us no favors, okay? So they came out with a bulletin that basically said if you were a town of a population, just what Rhonda said, of a certain size, you could take up to $10 million of your ARPA funds as lost revenue to the town. No questions asked. We got $942,000 and some change, and the board voted in a minute to take all of that money as town lost revenue. You didn't have to prove anything. I think they just wanted to make this easy for the thousands of municipalities across the country who got ARPA funds, and we took it. In that, it basically put it under the control, which it was before, of the Selectboard, and that's what we've been kind of judiciously spending money on since then. So when we took it as lost revenue, we can look, in my view, within the categories that they initially spelled out, of which economic development, COVID relief, et cetera, is in there. And that's where I think we could support certain nonprofit requests. But we don't have to do that.
Okay. Well, thank you for considering
Okay.
it. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Anything else? Any other comments? Motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.